The last time we publicly heard from Special Counsel Robert Mueller was nearly a year ago when he testified about his report on Russia's sabotage on our election. Since then, he has avoided speaking about the contents of his report until this weekend, when he wrote an op-ed titled "Roger Stone Remains a Convicted Felon, and Rightly So." That, of course, was in response to President Donald Trump commuting Stone's sentence, his longtime friend and ally, late Friday night. According to testimony in his trial and the Mueller report, Roger Stone's job was keeping the Trump campaign informed about WikiLeaks' release of emails stolen by Russian intelligence. Stone was afforded due process. He had his time in court. It was proven to a jury that he was guilty of exactly what he was accused of: 7 felony crimes, and he lied under oath to Congress to cover up what he did. He intimidated a witness. And now his sentence has been commuted by the president, who benefited from that lie. And make no mistake, Roger Stone was the go-between on the central issue, right? The thing that we covered for years. He was the one closest to that word collusion. Where the Trump campaign and Russian efforts to sabotage Hillary Clinton met in 2016. You will find Roger Stone. Joining me now is someone who sat through every minute of the trial, heard all the evidence, and then voted to convict Roger Stone, Seth Cousins. Seth, great to have you on. First, I guess, your reaction as someone who served as a juror in this trial. I imagine this wasn't unexpected, but your thoughts at the fact that the president has come in to say Roger Stone will not be going to prison.
Sure, Chris. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Also disappointed that we're still talking about Roger Stone 8 months after the trial ended. So I have a couple observations, and this is really just as a U.S. citizen. First, exactly like you just said, is the naked corruption of the president commuting Stone's sentence just seems unprecedented. This guy was charged and convicted of lying to Congress, obstructing their investigation. He has been open that his purpose was to protect the president. And then the president turns around and seems to protect his crony for breaking the law on his behalf. But then the second observation, Chris, and I think this one's maybe more important, is that we're in the middle of the national conversation about the unequal administration of justice in our country. The deaths this year of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, have started to open the country's eyes to what Black and brown people have been seeing and have been trying to say for generations, that the experience of law and of justice for Black and brown people is very different than the experience for white people in this country. And here we have an example of how the president chooses to react to that moment. He's not trying to solve these real problems. He's not trying to make this a more equal union. He's commuting the sentence of the white man who covered up his crimes for him. I think it's shocking.
The cover-up here seems to me crucial, right? That, I mean, the thing that the man, ultimately, in some ways, he was able to kind of be sketchy enough and duplicitous enough and sort of amorphous enough that what he ended up being charged with, what was very clear, was his lies. And how clear was it to you and your fellow jurors that he had done this, that he had lied under oath, that he had repeatedly lied, that he had intimidated a witness as part of a cover-up enterprise on the president's behalf?
Yes. Well, so the evidence in the trial didn't go to it being on the president's behalf, but everything else that you said, Chris, everybody on the jury was 100% convinced that the prosecution had proved its case. It had proven each of the lies that he was accused of. It had proven the witness tampering. It had proven the obstruction of the investigation. They didn't have to, nor did they go try to explore why Stone may have done that. In the case, they only had to prove that he actually had done that, and they did prove that.
What do you think about what justice would be here, as someone who sat in that jury, particularly in relation to the point you made about the sort of unequal justice in America? I saw Lindsey, there was clearly some back and forth about commutation versus a pardon, and Lindsey Graham saying, look, this is a 70-year-old man, it's a nonviolent first offense, to which I say, sure, that applies to lots of people in prison. Like, what would justice look like here as someone who sat on the jury?
I really don't know the answer to that, Chris. I'm not a lawyer, clearly not an expert in what appropriate sentencing is for anyone. But it is clear that some sort of sentence and some sort of prison time was warranted. Even Bill Barr called the prosecution righteous and said that the sentence seemed correct to him.
Yeah, that's striking. Will Barr, who's trying to sort of get out of the way of this slow-motion corruption disaster that has happened now from the president that he served. Seth Cousins, who served on the jury that convicted Roger Stone months ago. Thank you so much for making some time for us tonight.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. Good night.